Of all the brands that have worked in the bush, Kenworth has stood the test of time like no other. However, it stands on the shoulders of a nearly forgotten army of Fords, Fargos, Inters, Leylands and GMCs, to mention but a few of the brands that were used as loggers over the decades. It soon became apparent that this was the truck the industry had been waiting for. The Howard brothers were amongst the first to recognise the benefits of these big tough trucks, and their truck was the 11th Kenworth to go to work in this country.
We got the truck through Dalloff and King, late 1965, and Dalloff and King, Ken King and I think like Pat Wilson was his name from Canada, come over, and they come up here and had a look at our road and our grades and what loads we wanted to cart, and this was the truck they'd come up with. It arrived, I think it was in January. It arrived on the wharf in Wellington, and we picked the truck up and we put it into work at Maungataniwha here in February 1966. So that's the start of my association with the old Kenworth here.
Yeah, you've got to admire the two Howard brothers actually been going ahead and doing that, really, because they were the biggest trucks that were available at the time.
The truck has always been known as Steptoe, and with Winston Howard at the wheel, this Kenworth became legendary in the hard and brutal Maungataniwha country, inland of Wairoa, located between Gisborne and Napier Hastings. The massive native logs that the Howards dragged out of the bush were cut down for smaller trucks to drag out to the ports of the east coast. The truck effectively supplied what we know these days as a super skid, and this big brute of a truck worked well ahead of its time.
Well, it was new to Howard Brothers, and they on-sold it to McKinney's Transport, and then from McKinney's Transport it went to Pettigrew's Freightways, and then went to Edwards Brothers Contracting. They traded it on their Pacific. From there it was bought by Riverland Contractors. Then it came up to Gisborne for J.D. Wallace, and then to Hitchens. Bill Hitchens had it, to Barry Caulfield, and then to me. So she's had a few owners.
Current owner Ian Story has a great deal of respect for the history of this truck and those that drove it before him, and he rescued and restored the truck to its current glory. A nostalgia run was organised back into the Maungataniwha to mark nearly half a century of service this truck has clocked up, and the trucks accompanying Steptoe were just as impressive as he is.
I'm Jerry Story, this is my son Dylan. We're from Gisborne and we're driving the RF 195 1965, powered by a 6V71 Detroit with a 10-speed Road Ranger, 4-speed auxiliary, and back through to 4.1 Rockwell SSHD diffs.
I'm Bob Ellis. I've restored this 1967 International 190. It's powered with a Detroit diesel straight 6-inline 671 with a 15-speed overdrive Road Ranger, still with the original International diffs, and I managed to put a jinker pole on it, which sort of takes it back to the era of what it used to do. We've actually done a couple of loads on it, which has been pretty cool, but yeah, it's basically the truck. It's a really nice truck.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dave Bockman. We've come into Maungataniwha to bring Steptoe back in and where she started life. This is my truck. It's an R200 International. I've owned it for about 23 years now, and you used to work it up till about 3 years ago, and then decided it deserved a retirement, so she pretty much sits in the shed now, so forth. But it's got a V692 in it, Spicer compound gearbox. We're not quite sure what the diffs are, but they're a Rockwell diff.
My name's Gary Teutenberg. I come from Gisborne. I've got this 72 Fleet Star. I've had it for about 10 years now, and the son and I rebuilt it, or did it up to stage that it is now. It's got a 6V53 Detroit engine in it with a 13-speed Road Ranger.
1966 2064 weight. It's powered with a V653 Detroit, and it's got a turbo on it, so it's roughly about 280 horsepower now. It's got still got the original old twin sticks, a 5 and a 4 gearbox in it. It's still got the same. I've changed the diffs, but it was 7.6. It's got 5.29s in it now, and gives it a top speed of. It cruises good at it'll do 100 k's easy now.
Robbie Caulfield, Rotorua, Hippo Gully. I got this old truck off Peter McDonald, North Auckland, Whangarei, in 2005, and he was the original driver right from new. And in 1975 they repowered it with a 335 Cummins Road Ranger, but the original motor was a 900 cubic inch Albion motor, 230 horse. It was a bigger motor than the Cummins in size, but 100 horsepower less.
McSporran family from Wairoa. We got this Leyland Super Buffalo. We've had it for 3 years. We're probably the luckiest classic truck people around, because I actually swapped a four-wheeler Isuzu for this 1979 Buffalo. She's got a 671 Detroit motor in it, and to date she's only done 185,000 k's.
After crossing the Mohaka River at Willow Flat, the convoy headed deep into the Maungataniwha, into the heart of the country that Steptoe logged back in the late 60s and early 70s. The howl of those Cummins and Detroits echoing around the hills of this hard country couldn't have been more apt. Steptoe was a revelation in its early years, as there was nothing in the region that could cart the loads it could, but eventually the bridge that condemned it to working in the back blocks was replaced, and under the next owner, Reg McKinney, the truck acquired an extra axle, and it worked beyond the Mohaka and dragged logs out to the coast. By the time the convoy of classic rigs and 4x4s had reached the super skid site, the weather had pretty much packed it in, and there was a howling gale coming over the saddle and down across the site. It was too unpleasant to hang around for long, but it was long enough to get a real good idea of just how Kenworth has proved itself in the bush, with these 904s building on what Steptoe started nearly 50 years ago.
It aimed for about 10 or 11,000 log feet. Sometimes you get up to 12, 13, but around 11,000 log feet, yeah.
And what would that be in weight?
That'd give an all-up weight of around 60 tonne, all up, yeah.
And what was powering the truck?
It had 250 Cummins. Now, when we got it, a bloke, Graham Jepson Engineering in Napier, he was one that actually put us on. I think he dealt a bit through Delop and King. And excuse me, he would have liked to have had a GM motor, but at the time there was restrictions. They called it had to have a certain British Empire content, and because GM was American, Cummins is American, but Cummins did have a factory in Scotland, so the 250 Cummins that come out was actually from Scotland. Otherwise, we would have had a GM motor in it. Hence the reason the Cummins motor. Because in those days, that was a big motor. It did a great job, but later years with Freightways, I went on a Kenworth had the 335 motor, and that was, because when we look at today, what they've got today, 700 horsepower. But no, it did a good job, but it was probably really underpowered. Probably, yeah. Well, as I said, the Canadian, this Pat Wilson, they designed the truck, and because we do get snow over the top at Maungataniwha, so hence it came out with no front wheel brakes. But that was an advantage. But quite often, we had a TID double axle jinker, but it was hydraulic brakes, and we seem to have a lot of trouble with the brakes on the air over hydraulic. It's a pity if the trailer jinker was full air, and more often than not I wouldn't have any trailer brakes, and it sort of was a bit awkward at times.
I went in with Ian and just showed him one or two places with the 4x4 gearbox we had. There was a particular corner and I had to bend one gear stick closer to the other so that when I could go around the corner, because you didn't have power steering, so that I could hang onto the steering wheel and shift both gear sticks together. And it was only for one corner, but you needed to do that. And that's, I mean, same thing. That's, I guess, a lot of Kiwis do things like that. You know, it's just, well, I've got to overcome this problem. How can I do this? And it's just a simple answer, you know. And it's been a fantastic journey living here and meeting the people I've met.
I remember Winston talking about the Kenworth coming from Canada, and we were all anxiously awaiting it to arrive. And it was going to be used up at Maungataniwha in the bush, pulling out to what they call the pole. And then they cut those logs in half and put them on a smaller truck because the bridge couldn't handle the big truck. So anyway, Winston kept me informed because I used to go for rides with him a lot in the trucks, and he was always telling me about different things they were going to do. And the final day arrived, and we anxiously waited at home to see it come down the hill here in front of us. And it was 1966 that it was bought. So we all hightailed it down to the bridge, and to catch Bruce and several of his drivers were there trying to get it to fit on the bridge, because it was only just wide enough and there wasn't enough room at the approach for the truck to just drive on. So they had to jack the truck up and move it across away from the side that it was on in order to give it a straight run out, which it took a couple of hours to do that. Once it was done, away she went, and Winston drove it off up the hill. And basically from that day on, I never had many rides with him because he was operating in the Maungataniwha area only out to what they call the pole, which was the loading area. So I had to somehow get a ride up to the village to where it was working, and I did get a chance to go for a ride, or a couple of rides with Winston. I remember thinking, how gentle he was on the truck. You know, the gear changes, he never missed a beat, and everything was accurate. Really, really good operator of Winston.
I remember Bruce Howard and his brother, and yeah, very well, because one part of it they asked us to put a truck in there to help him cart the logs out, but I remember coming in with Bruce and having a look and thinking, oh no, that's too tough for us. Yeah.
Old Steptoe must have been an impressive sight.
I'll say. Yeah, I can remember it very well. Yeah, she was a great old truck. Yeah. The big loads of logs in them days, more than what we were allowed to carry.
So that arrived. We got some photos of it getting across the bridge, and I'm not sure how long it was before eventually Steptoe could cart right out, because we put a new bridge in down here, or the council did. And when that happened, that was in the mid-70s. He was then able to cart right out to, well, he carted right down to Napier with it.
But our biggest problem was the bridge restrictions on the swing bridge down here. It had a 12-tonne restriction on it at the time, and well, we had traffic cops sitting out at the main road waiting for us those days, and it was a battle. So we did a hell of a lot of big logs in the dark, and a hell of a lot of logging in the dark, to be honest. They didn't sit out there till after 4 because, you know, they were town people. And we knew we'd get away with it after dark, and that went on for many, many years without them waking up to the fact, going out around to the railway and looking at the railway wagons with huge logs on them. They sort of never woke up to that, but yeah, it made the job pay.
One of the issues with it was it had no front brakes on it, which everybody talked about, and thought it was going to be a problem when they put it on the public road, but it doesn't ever seem to have been a problem. Ian Story's still getting certificates with it, so it's still a very useful truck, and they've done a beautiful job of restoring it. But I remember when it was brand new, it was a very smart truck, and it virtually got better with age, really.
Yeah, no, I came here in April 1969 to work for TO Long Company, which was owned by Jim Pedersen and Carter Holtz, Robert Holtz actually, and started up in the TO River there driving the TD20 for Jim. Yeah, what else, mate?
Okay, well, when was the first time you saw Steptoe in action?
The first day I was on the job. I wasn't good enough to load it then, but they taught me within a few days, or started teaching me, and yeah, she was actually the first logging truck I ever rolled logs onto, so I got, you know, special place for me with the old girl.
She must have cut an impressive sight in those days. She's so much bigger than anything else.
Yeah, it was, certainly was, and had a pretty slick operator in it too, in Winston. Yeah.
I heard Winston was really good on the gear, really gentle.
He was, he had a great feel for it. He could tell when something was developing, and he'd go looking for it and find it, you know. Yeah, very careful operator, and being such a big brute on a hard road, he had to be, so.
Fantastic to see all these trucks that have arrived here today, and Steptoe, and it was quite amazing putting this beside two of the off-highway trucks up in the bush. And I mean, when I first hopped on this, I thought this was a massive truck. You know, I thought, goodness me, what a big unit. When you see it up beside the trucks of today, especially the off-highway trucks, I mean, suddenly it doesn't look quite so big. But when you've seen photos of what this used to cart, I mean, it was certainly an impressive vehicle in its day. I can first remember you used to have a Leyland Hippo carting out, and this was relatively new then. The Leyland was coming up the Hook Hill at a snail's pace, and then Steptoe came around the corner with 10-foot bolsters, and it looked like it was going at 100 miles an hour, just to give you a comparison of a 250 against the old Leyland, British Leyland, you know, and it was just a really impressive sight. Never to think that at some point in the future I would actually be driving it, you know. So, as I say, this it's been a privilege to have driven it and meet the people that I have met over the years.
Well, my family was involved in trucks all their lives. My dad was logging, believe it or not, with horses in his young days, and converted to trucks as he aged. And he was in here during the war, 41 to about 46, I think he was in here, logging with GMCs for Windloves. And he moved from here, got his own trucks, and went to Motu, Maungataniwha, and logged up there, and come back here in 49, 50, I think it was, and logged Fraser's bush up here, which took him till about 1955, I think it was. We all drove out of here at that stage, various trucks, mainly KB6 Internationals and Ford Thorntons. And well, to begin with, years ago, I actually started school here. I went to school here with the Fraser boys. I think there was 9 of us in the school. So we sort of grew up in this area and spent many years in this area, logging and general carrying. When the logging finished, we went into the general. And of course it was Internationals, Ford Thorntons and TS3 diesels. Yeah.
And what were the Ford Thorntons like to drive with their Sport Thornton?
Great truck, very slow truck, but it didn't matter what you put on their backs, you were sure to get out with. You could never overload them. You couldn't hurt them. They were a great truck, really. You could walk faster than they could be on their low gears, you know. And there's places in here that was that much mud that we used to set the throttle, get out, get your shovel, and throw pumice under the wheels while she worked her way up the hills, trying to get traction, you know. And those old girls used to just drive themselves out virtually. You climbed in now and again just to keep them in the wheel marks, you know. They were so slow, but as I say, it didn't matter what you put on the back.
Those logs.
Oh, they varied. There was anything up to 24 foot girth logs come out of here. That's girth. Some of them on the trucks, I've got photos here of them with, they're higher than sheep crates today. You know, not the 3-decker ones, but 2-decker sheep crates. Because we used to pull the telephone lines down, you know, the old single telephone lines through the place used to get caught up in the actual big logs coming out of here.
So how did you load a log of that dimension?
That was all pushed on by machines, but it was, believe it or not, timber jacks out at the rail to unload them. We had timber jacks. I've still got some of those timber jacks to this day. Yeah, all manual stuff. But later on, as years progressed, we had winches on little trucks out there that we used to power buckle our logs up and load 2 tiers on railway wagons, you know, quite easily. Well, it's been fantastic to come in and see all the old faces. You know, there's guys here that I worked beside that I would have never recognised because it's 40 odd years since I was in here. And it's been a great day, honestly. Fantastic.
Even though the views from the Super Skid site were terrific, and you could see forever over Hawke's Bay, the convoy soon tired of the ferocious winds that had kicked up, and they headed off to go even deeper into the Maungataniwha and see how this heavily logged region is becoming a renowned haven for native birds through the good works of the Forest Life Force Restoration Trust.
This is what we call the Maungataniwha native block, and this block is 6,100 hectares, and we're quite lucky we have the Waiha River that boundaries us on one side, and on the other side we have the Tioe, and then on the northern end of the block over the Waiha is the Ura National Park, and we're situated, I suppose, about 42 kilometres in the Willow Flat Road, onto the Tioe, and then onto the Waiha Road from the off the Napier Warrell Road. This place was extensively logged, ground-based. There's tracks for Africa in here, and then in the latter years it was heli-logged, and in some ways they say that regenerated native is good for kiwi breeding, and but we're not just only doing kiwis. We're doing we've got kaka here, which is, that's a real plus. That's a great thing, and all our other native birds, the pigeons, the tuis, the bush robins, the tomtits, the bellbird, you name them, they're all coming back in big numbers. So that's it's real promising. We've got what we call a sanctuary of 600 hectares, which is immediately around us here, and we run about 750 foolproof bait stations, and we've got traps in that same area. We'd have 300 or 400 traps in that area, but we trap further out than that. Marvellous having like Alan Bockman, who logged in here in the late 60s, and he still works in here with his bulldozer, his D4, and we put in tracks, and I'll say to Alan, do you know where this track goes? And he'll say, he stands there and looks at me like this and says, I can't remember, but I'll have a go. And then we'll be pushing away, and he'll say, I think there's a big remu stump up around the corner, and sure enough, there it is. So he's great to have as a worker in here, and very experienced bushman.
Yeah. So it must be pretty special to see them saving that kiwi area,
Yeah, that's
putting a bit of it back to the native. That must be kind of good for a guy like you.
Well, I've actually got another bulldozer, and it's away in the Waiha there, opening up all our old logging tracks so that they can do the trapping and, keeping the kiwis safe and whatever. And that's a really special thing for me.
Are you doing that yourself?
Yep. That's my weekend work.
I was never in favour of seeing that particular area of native clear felled and put into pine. I know it created a lot of work for a lot of people, but it was just very sad to see, really. So it's great to see somebody who's going to try to get it back to native and see if they can replenish the kiwi supply. Yeah, great. A bloke, Brian Nelson, used to do our sign writing on our trucks, and he always reckoned a lot of our trucks were junk. And evidently when my brother got him to do the sign writing, he said to my brother, where did this come from? and my brother made some comment about Steptoe and Son, the TV program, so that got the name Steptoe, which has sort of stuck to it since then, yeah.
So it's always been called Steptoe?
Yeah, always been known as Steptoe, yeah.
And how many trucks did you have when you bought the Kenworths?
We had we had a couple of Ford D800s carting from the log dump with single axle jinker, and we had I think it was ex-Forest Products 195 Inter, and it carted direct from the bush to the rail at Kotamari. We eventually got the swing bridge at Willow Flat was replaced with the bridge that's there today. So we were able to cart the bigger loads. But as I said before, when we sold out to McKinney's, because we had the new bridge, they scrubbed the offloading at the log dump, and everything went direct from the bush to the rail. And McKinney's put a pusher axle on it to improve the axle loading, and put a space axle jinker or trailer on, yeah.
My father purchased Steptoe, and it was in not that great a state of repair, so between my younger brother and myself and my father, we put quite a lot of hours into restoring Steptoe, bringing it up to a usable rally running truck and for general purpose, you know. And it's yeah, I think we've achieved that. It certainly looks very smart getting down the road, and it's can keep up with the best of them. So yeah, it's great to see it coming back into the where she worked, where she was born and worked hard for probably the best part of its life. So yeah, it's been a great weekend bringing it home.
But other than that, she gets along the road and she rides quite well. I always put something on the back because she still has got no front brakes. She came out like that. And yeah, it's a bit of a challenge stopping. So I usually put something on the back just to weigh her down a little bit and make it ride a little bit better. But other than that, she gets along pretty good. Yeah, she's quite good to drive. Yeah. So she's been repowered before I got it with a 252 Super Cummings motor. They put a Road Ranger in it earlier in its life in Napier, and it had the imported Timken Brave Vincent supplied diffs when I got it, which were very low. It was 70 k's full bore, and I put later high-speed diffs in it so we could buzz along the road at the current speed. Plus, it's still got its auxiliary box in it, so it's a 10-speed Road Ranger with a 4-speed auxiliary. So I've got 40 gears, and at the current speed limit, I'm got 2 gears to go. I drive it in direct, and every now and again I get a challenge, so it does slip into overdrive. But yeah, that's about it. It's a very valued member of the family, and truck's got a lot of history.
This place is getting me a bit bushed because it's all pine now and you can't see the flow of the country, you know. I honestly did get a bit bushed there occasionally today. Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. Yes, old skid sites aren't there anymore, and yeah. Yeah, no, we had some good moments in and out of here, and carting stock out in the latter years, carting from Maungataniwha out of here, Halliburton's also from Ngātapa area, that all went down to Hastings stock. 1,000 ewes come out of the back of Maungataniwha farm for quite a few years, and they used to top the sales down at Storford Lodge, believe it or not. The old Perindale ewes that were up here, they grew like stags, you know. Big monstrous things. Yeah, so we spend anything up to 3 or 4 days getting towed out with D4s with sheep crates on out of that bush road that we're in there today. Yeah.
That must have been fun.
We used to leave our trailers out here at the old mill camp up the Cookhouse Hill was it used to stretch the old girls a bit, so we'd have to leave our trailers there and ferry loads out and go back and fill your truck and then head off. But by the time you hit the main road, after loading you out of here with sheep, it was pretty near close to dark at night for your run to Hastings, you know, those days. Yeah, it was all slow going in here. Hard yakka, yeah.
And what were you driving when you were on stock work?
The same old trucks we were logging in here with the TS3 comma diesels. Yeah, we kept them, took the bolsters off, put flat decks on them. Some of them had jinkers. We took the jinkers away and put flat trailers behind them and put stock crates on them and worked them right through. We never sold them. We worked them till they dropped, you know.
After the visit to Barry and the Forest Life Force Restoration Program, it was time to turn around and head back to Willow Flat for a barbie and a beer. It was a great trip, and the trucks performed like they were born to it. It was a rare privilege to visit the Maungataniwha and visit the country where Steptoe earned its living, and there was unanimous appreciation for those that organised the permissions and planned the trip. The next day, after a group photograph, it was time to saddle up and head home. This was a trip to be treasured, and it will live long in the memories of those that were there.
Well, a guy that worked for, did work with Bill Perry was Colin Taylor.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, he had a tailor's contracting.
Thank you.